Welcome to Rules of the Road, navigating the life and journey of a leader. Thank you for letting me share the road with you today. Every leader has goals, resources, and constraints. Today, we're going to be talking about the fuel that you use as a leader to get you and your team where you need to go the most efficiently. We're going to talk also about the hazards that you might encounter and how to overcome them to prevent delays. And most importantly, we're going to talk about how all of these things help you and your team reach your destination and achieve success. Hello, I'm Debbie Maund. I'm an Army Reserve chaplain, hospital chaplain, and founder of Veterans for Worship and Three Leaders Group. Rules of the Road, rule number 1, travel light. Regardless of your destination, you want to make sure that you travel as light as possible so you can get where you're going as quickly as possible. Sometimes traveling light means letting go of physical stuff, and sometimes it means letting go of personal and professional hurts that weigh you down and prevent or delay where you're going next. Last year, my husband and I decided to move to North Carolina. We had to offload 21 years of items and stuff in our house. We also had to say goodbye to friends and family. We had been with them over 3 decades. We had to say goodbye to this state of Washington, where we lost his mom in 2017. And then more recently, his brother passed in 2024. But what we realized is we needed to get on the road to our new season and our new chapter. It didn't mean that we didn't bring the memory of his mom and his brother with us. It just meant that we needed to bring joy into our new season while letting go of the things that might be weighing us down. Maybe you're sitting there today and you're realizing that you might be bringing every single personal or professional hurt into your new season, into a new position, no matter how you try to bring joy into your life, either personally or professionally, you realize that there's something that's weighing you down. Maybe today you take the action to let go of that. It's all about getting where we are called to go. So, rule number 1, travel light, my friend. Travel light. Of the road, rule number 2, watch out for hazards and watch your indicators. During rule number 1, we talked about traveling light. Rule number 2 is about how those good and bad things in life can impact us as we travel along the road. Sometimes those good and bad memories can create major obstacles. Sometimes it's just daily situations that can slow us down. But what's important to know is that we need to be alert and aware that there could be obstacles in our way. Sometimes these obstacles can erode our resilience. They can erode our joy. And then what happens is we feel the fatigue of those things. We feel the fatigue of those speed bumps. And if we're not careful, we can get so tired that we can completely run off the road. That's why I think rumble strips are so important. Maybe where you live, you have rumble strips on either side of the highway. This prevents drivers and truck drivers to be aware when maybe they're getting drowsy and sleepy and tired on their journey. If we're not careful, those rumble strips can also let us know that we're driving off the highway. If we're not careful to watch the rumble strips and to feel how they're impacting our ride, we could easily hit some major potholes in our life. Potholes can be dangerous. Maybe it can be a major damage to your vehicle or to yourself, or maybe a pothole just requires a simple realignment. Regardless of how short or long our journey is, we need to be aware of speed bumps. We need to be alert to these rumble strips, and we certainly want to make sure that we're avoiding potholes. Rules of the road, rule number 3. During rule number 2, we discuss potholes. If you hit a pothole hard enough, you're going to need a realignment. Additionally, your side mirrors might get out of whack, and it might prevent you from seeing oncoming traffic or problems. This can certainly impact your blind spots. It can also have an impact on how you safely change lanes and determine where you're going next. Rules of the road, rule number 4, leaders make a way and avoid gridlock. In the previous rule, we talked about blind spots. Good leaders will always analyze their blind spots and try to improve them. They know if they have really bad blind spots, they're going to have lane violations. Sometimes lane violations are no big deal. It's a near and miss. Everything's okay. No harm, no foul. But sometimes lane violations can cause great damage and people can get hurt. And when emotions are high, lane violations can turn into road rage. And good leaders don't encourage road rage. Again, they don't tolerate gridlock. And when I hear the word gridlock, I think about my time as a manager. I was new on the scene and I was managing over 24 different locations in 5 states. I had a really great team that I had already worked with for some time. And in this one location, it was a historic building and the elevators didn't work. And you can imagine how hard it would be to get parts replaced on an antiquated elevator. And in talking with my team, it seemed like this had been going on for a while, maybe even a year. So this was my priority project to get this moving. So again, I talked with my team about the challenges. We developed a timeline of how long it had been, what actions had been done and which ones hadn't been done, what had been responded to and what hadn't been responded to. And I took this information to another agency for help. Initially, they were saying that we needed to give the landlord more time, but I resisted. We've already given plenty of time. Well, we need to make sure they have a plan. Well, we waited, and there was no real hard plan. They were making progress, but there was no major plan, no project completion date for this elevator. So I reached out to the agency and I said, we need to relocate. As you can imagine, with the elevators not working, our customers had to walk up 3 flights of stairs. This gridlock was causing potential danger and safety issues. So you can imagine customers who couldn't maneuver stairs, they were redirected to another location 70 miles away. That's not customer service. That was unacceptable. So I reached back out to the agency and I said, could we have an expedited relocation. Just like a hurricane, that's all I'm asking. Can we have an expedited lease relocation based on this scenario? And they responded, no, it didn't qualify. So I took my facts and my data, the timeline, and the lack of response, and I went back to the agency and I made sure that they understood that not only our agency was at risk for a major legal lawsuit, but so were they. Thankfully, I think those facts brought everyone together and we developed a plan to do an expedited lease relocation in 1 year. Everyone promised that this was the priority and that anything else that got in the way was put to the side and all attention was focused on this project. I'm grateful to report that we were able to relocate in that year's time, and we were prepared for the next business year. So again, leaders don't tolerate gridlock. They work with their teams and they're seen when it matters most. And their blind spots are adjusted so they can see everything in view. Rules of the road, rule number 5, choose your stay. In the last rule, we talked about gridlock. If we're honest, sometimes in our personal and professional lives, we can feel gridlock. We can feel stuck. And when we're in that season, we have 3 different choices. When we realize that we might be stuck for some time, we can complain about it. We can make the situation really uncomfortable, and we can lay down in that position, feeling every rock and maybe every rock that's being thrown at us. The second option is people around us might know that we're looking for something else and that we're only going to be there temporarily. I had an employee once that came in almost every day just saying, I'm not going to be here too much longer. I'm applying for this, I'm applying for that. I'm working on my resume, and yet he was still there. But by communicating that he didn't want to be there, he eroded the trust of everyone on the team. The third option is you might be feeling stuck where you're at. And again, this could be personally or professionally. But within that season, you find something of joy. And people don't know exactly how unhappy you might be because they're seeing the joy that you're finding in that season. In talking with my soldiers about job satisfaction and mentoring them and finding work that they really like, I talk about the 4 sides of a career. So one side is how much you love that industry, that career, that choice. The other side of the box is how much you get paid to do it. And then on the left and the right, it's the customers you serve or the people you work with. Unfortunately, we don't always get 4 out of 4. We know that there's lots of people who make a lot of money but hate their jobs. And we know some people who absolutely love what they do, but they don't make a lot of money. And you might be in an industry where you love the people you work with, but you don't always like your customers. And so in that analysis, if you're feeling stuck, if you're feeling gridlock professionally or personally, maybe find that area of that position, that job, that agency, that organization in which you find joy. Rules of the road, rule number 6. Listen for upcoming changes in your route. During the last rule, we talked about feeling stuck, personally or professionally. There will be a time that you'll be able to move forward in something new. You won't be stuck there forever. So you have to be able to listen when change is coming. And change can happen on a dime. A few years ago, I was deployed with the United States Army Reserve. I returned home from there only to realize that I could retire early from the federal government. So I had to listen for the changes that were coming up. And sometimes in our life, we do have new opportunities. Sometimes we have so many new opportunities, we don't know which one to choose. I want to share with you some advice I was given from an advisor. She was helping me professionally pick one or two options. And she said, Debbie, one day this week, I want you to select one of those options in your head and in your heart. And I want you to notice the peace you have in making that decision. Then the next day, I want you to make the other choice in your heart and your head and analyze how much peace and or joy that one gives you. And then compare the two. Sometimes it's just a sliver of a difference. But when we take the time to reflect on all of our choices, we understand that there's definitely one that resonates with us more than the other. We have the freedom to make our own choices. Sometimes they work out great and sometimes they don't. But when we own our decisions after careful analysis and reflection, then we know we're moving on to a new season, being curious and being excited for what's ahead. Rules of the road, rule number 7. Leaders bear the load in times of crisis. In the last rule, we talked about when you might be able to move on to a new season and a new chapter. And what you might find, like I did, is your new leadership in this new season is needed during a crisis. My husband, Bob, worked commercial construction in the Seattle area for over 30 years. One of the last projects he was on was the 520 bridge. And if you're familiar in the Seattle area, you know the 520 bridge spans from Bellevue, where Microsoft is, over to Seattle in about 20 minutes. The old bridge had its issues and repairs were not doing the job, so they decided to replace the whole thing. This was a huge project that spanned many, many years. I remember my husband being on this project, and he would come home each and every night just exhausted. And I could tell that it was taking a toll on him. Unfortunately, he came home one night, and as he was getting out of his truck, he received a call. The project had been shut down. You can imagine a project like this that took millions of dollars to do would not just stop abruptly for no reason. Based on my husband's experience, he knew that in closing down and shutting down this project, someone must have been hurt really bad or someone lost their life. We stood by to watch the news, and finally some of the details were coming out. And on March 12th, 2015, we had learned that Joe Arentz had lost his life that day on the bridge. He had fallen about 30 feet. He was a young guy, and everyone on the job absolutely admired Joe. He was a guy full of hope. A lot of construction workers are a little cranky, including my own, But Joe had a different kind of personality and style on the job. He had a great attitude. Even that day, that fateful day, people said that Joe was suspended from the bridge in his equipment, and it was a beautiful day in Seattle. And he said, I can't believe I get to do this. Unfortunately, his fall and his death had a great impact on the team. They were scared, they were grieving. And thankfully, the leaders around them knew that they needed their support. So the leaders of this project and this company brought in chaplains for the team to talk to. And through their grief processing, they decided they were going to do something in Joe's memory. And if you're familiar with the construction trades, you know that every local and every trade has a hard hat sticker on their hard hat to represent who they are and what they do. And so this team rallied together, and in their grief, but also their creativity, they created hard hat stickers in memory of Joe. They knew that Joe was a guy full of hope. And thankfully, the leaders of this team knew that they needed to build bridges in that shared hope and in that shared grief. You can imagine how much this story impacts me and my family, my husband, even today. Most people knew where Joe got his hope from. He was a worship leader at his church, and he created a record label called Bridge Builders. I even have one of those stickers. They also did some window decals, and I had it on my car for many years. WWJD, what would Joe do? And so in their grief and in their healing, whenever they got discouraged, they would remember Joe, and they would remember how Joe might maneuver the situation. We are so grateful for Joe's service on that project. During this time, my husband showed me a picture of the team, and I saw their construction boots, and I saw their safety vests, and I saw their hard hats. And in many ways, they reminded me of my military soldiers with their combat boots and their body armor and their Kevlars. And we know that in deployments, not everyone comes home. And so this 520 bridge project was very similar to a deployment. And unfortunately, Joe didn't get to go home that day. But we have his example, and we have this shared hope, and we have this shared story that may be sad, but also inspiring. So again, your next season could be a season where your leadership is needed in crisis. Rules of the road, rule number 8. Use the HOV lane to turn your pain into purpose. During the last rule, we talked about a crisis situation on a bridge in Seattle. As you heard that story, you might be thinking of a similar situation in your life. And you might be wondering, was there a purpose for the pain? During this time with you, we've talked about speed bumps. And you might be sitting there with some speed bumps that are fully healed and some that you're still working on. I want to encourage you to reach out to resources when you feel that there's more healing to do. Certainly, I encourage you to reach out to a counselor, a mentor, or a chaplain to work through some of your past hurts. because in our hurts and in our speed bumps, we're not alone. And healing happens faster when we do it together. And you might find that there's other people who have a similar story. Speaking of stories, I want to share a story from a friend in Florida. He gave me permission to share it. I met my friend in 2018 on Facebook, and he had heard a little bit about my story and wanted to interview me on a podcast. By 2020, he had just been so excited about our mission, Veterans for Worship in Washington State, that he wanted to expand what we did in Florida. My friend also loves working with new organizations like ours, and he also worked for many startup companies. As you can imagine, startup companies that have capital and investors, their employees can get paid. And if they don't have capital and investors, sometimes their employees don't get paid. And my friend was in this situation. He and his family were about to get evicted. They had struggled to pay their rent, but the veteran community rallied behind them and kept them in their home. Then he reached out to another organization that helped him with resume writing and also encouraged him to try a new industry where maybe there was more financial stability. He and his family really struggled last year. And in this last organization he reached out to, and they provided the resume and interview help, his case manager reached out to him and said, I'm headed to a new opportunity, and I can't think of a better person to replace me than you. I want you to know I'm letting the leadership know that I recommend you as I'm leaving. Long story short, my friend got this new position. It is the kind of work that he's wanted to do for a very long time, helping veterans, helping homeless veterans, and being on the street finding them, trying to bring hope and help them in a new season and chapter. So, where do you need help? Where do you need hope? Where do you need people to walk alongside you in your speed bumps? I encourage you, it's so much easier to do it with others when you invite them into the HOV lane with you. You'll move faster and you'll get farther than being by yourself. Thank you again for letting me share the road with you today. During the last rule, we talked about reaching out to others to help us with our speed bumps and on our journey. At this point in time, I want to invite you to reach out to me, scan the QR code, and reach out to me. I would love to talk with you about your speed bumps, about your story, and help you recalculate your route. Maybe a free 30-minute conversation can help you gain clarity. It can help you position and reposition to something else. And certainly, reflecting with other people can bring you on the road to success. If I can help you at all, please reach out, scan the QR code for a free 30-minute conversation. I look forward to it. Thank you.